Motivation. I'm motivated. But what do you do when motivation is not enough? You rely on your work ethic. You rely on your discipline. That's my mentality. Now let's get it.
The stage, please welcome Julian Peters.
What's going on, everybody? This is Julian back with My Mentality Podcast. For those listening, welcome back to my voice. For those watching, say hello to my beautiful face. How y'all doing? Today, I'm excited about this topic. We're going to title this Being a Black Man Raised by a Single Mother. I got three great gentlemen that have decided to join me and share some of their experiences, positive and negative. So before we get into the conversation, I'm going to go ahead and have everybody introduce themselves. So we'll start alphabetically. Ashford, what's going on, man?
What's going on? My mentality, glad to be on here, man. Glad to be number one. Just the invite, brother. I appreciate you thinking of being number two, man. Nice job of what you're doing with the podcast, brother, and just bringing up topics to allow brothers to connect on topics that we probably wouldn't reflect on a whole lot without it. So appreciate the platform. My name is Ashford Collins. I currently live in Kansas City. I work at Valley Park Elementary School. Actually, I'm in the office right now just hanging out up here to do this podcast because back at home is where the wife and two kids are. And this just wasn't going to happen today at the crib. So I had to get up here with some silence a little bit. But my wife, she's been staying at home the past 2 years, Spanish teacher. Two of our girls, Avery's 5, Demi's 3. My wife and I met in college. Both of us educators, graduate from Mid-American Nazarene University, came into education. The past 3-4 years, I've been in education administration. Will be an assistant principal at Valley Park Elementary School this upcoming school year. Previous to coming to the Midwest, man, I'll tell anybody, whenever somebody asks, like, where are you from? Where are you born and raised? I just say the Southeast, because anybody that's from the Southeast knows what I mean, but we just moved around so much. And I went to a different middle school every single year of middle school. So I was everywhere from Athens, Georgia to Atlanta, Georgia, to Gwinnett County, to Knoxville, Tennessee. And so just covered a lot of ground and raised by a lot of different people in the Southeast. So that's where home is, but I'm glad to be here today.
Right, man. I appreciate you. I met Ashford out in Kansas City. He's been a big time homie, helped me out in a big time of need, but very, very good man, Christian man, who is definitely a great leader by example and helping the youth like we need. So I appreciate you for joining, brother. Matt Veasy.
Yeah, what's up?
From VC. What's going on, man?
Man, it's going, man. Yeah, like Ashton said, I just appreciate you getting this together. I remember we talked about it on Facebook, and that's how it got brought up. And we were inboxing each other, and we were really just noticing, like, man, this got some traction. Like, this is something that we should definitely hit. So I appreciate you including me in this, and I really think it's a beautiful thing when especially Black brothers can get together like this and really just share information. But my name is Matthew, Tulsa native, and we went to school together, me, you, and Tim. And I'm a father now, but about to be 7-year-old daughter next month. So time has flown by, and it's crazy in the blink of an eye, but it's a beautiful thing to live too, So I just appreciate being here.
Oh, man. And you are, and just to let y'all know, my man done pulled over his truck so he could spend time with us doing his job thing.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you, man.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
So the next up, I'm going to go ahead and preface y'all before you listen. This brother's voice is deeper than Barry White when he just woke up in the morning. My guy, former basketball teammate, former high school teammate, just a great guy, Tim Pernell. Tim, what's going on?
What's going on, man? I'm glad to be here. Glad for the invite. To tell you the truth, I've listened to the My Entitled podcast on a couple other topics, mainly whenever you had Robbie on and Mike Lee on from time to time. So that's really the time I listen because we all go way back. But I just enjoy the content. I enjoy the ideas and the topics that you come up with. So it's a good listen to. Please subscribe and follow. I say that for everyone that I know personally. Man, let's see. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma right now. My wife, we're actually up at my father-in-law's house in Skytook right now. We lived here for about 5 years before moving back. We have two small kids. I have a 5-year-old who's going to be 6 here pretty soon. And I got a 1-year-old that'll be 2 here pretty soon, boy and a girl. Let's see. I work at an accounting firm out in South Tulsa. It's a growing, very prominent growing firm called CCK Strategies. Been there for about a year. I've been what else? I've been out of college for a year now. I graduated from OSU last year in 2020 during the pandemic. I didn't get to walk, but got to do the virtual graduation. So, but otherwise than that, now I'm just enjoying life and just happy to be alive during these crazy times and being sane in these crazy times. So,
For sure. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself for the people that don't know. My name is Julian Peters. I am currently out in Arizona. I ain't gonna tell y'all my city because I want y'all to know where I'm at. But I am in Arizona. I did go to high school with, like I said, Matt and Tim. A little bit about my background. I went to college, Oklahoma Wesleyan University. Got an undergrad in marketing. Got my master's in education. And I am a product of a single mother. So I wanted to bring up this topic because I just think there's a lot of perspective and information that can be shared that can really benefit a lot of people, men, women, whoever. So again, I'm excited. I thank you brothers for joining, and let's just go ahead and get into it, man. Let's get into it. So my first question is, how important is the male influence, not in just our lives, but in the world in general? And y'all, whoever wants to go first can go first.
Go ahead, Tim. It's on the tip of your tongue.
Yep.
It is because whenever you sent out the memo of what we're going to speak about, I was talking to my wife about it on the way up here, and she was saying, for me personally, she thinks that I still struggle at times, understanding the male influence overall, just because my dad wasn't there. He passed away when I was about 2.5, 3 years old. So it was rough, but I felt like I adjusted along the way because of the types of substitutes of male influences that I had, whether it be my older brothers who already had kids of their own that were around my age, or, my godfather, or even, very close friends that whose parents and my mom had a really close-knit relationship church-wise. So I felt like it was supplemented in ways, but there were still areas that I lacked in personally. But overall, to get back to the question, it's very important, especially in this day and time, and leading the next generation on how things are supposed to go. So it's very important.
Go ahead, Ashford, man. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I was just listening to Tim and just talking about, as you reflect over that question specifically and just what immediately comes to mind. And like, when you try to keep it real, that's part of the reason why I knew, like, nah, babe, I'm gonna have to go to my school for this conversation. I can't, but not because there's nothing I'm gonna say that I couldn't say in front of her or the girls, but when you truly want to get to that space with your brothers, like, you need to get away from that. And the initial first thing that came to my mind when I read this question is the reason why the influence of a male is so important, specifically the Black male, but the male in general, is because the male has always been the dominant influencer and privileged one since the beginning of creation. That is the one that we've given the power to. That is the one that our bias has gotten away from. That is the one that we have catered to. We have just been the ones, you know what I'm saying? And when we talk about, racial privilege, we look at what dominant culture has had the mantle and has been the oppressor for years. It's been generally the white culture, right? And what do we ask them to do? We ask them, hey, we're not saying poo-poo on your privilege. We're saying good for your privilege. Now use that to create equity in other places. And so that's why I think being a male, while it is such a challenge in so many ways, the reality of it is like, it is a privilege in a lot of ways too. And so the reason why it's so key and why it's so important to have male influences around is because there's a privilege that they naturally have. There are certain senses of power and certain respect and reverence that they will have just from coming on the scene somewhere, that you being able to see that and how that individual male that you get to see that's modeling for you, how they use that power is what's going to be so dynamic for you as you grow up. Because if you're around a male, I'm trying not to use the word father or dad, because we know that the male figure is so diverse nowadays, right?
Right.
But that male figure, depending on how they use that influence, is going to create a domino effect for generations and generations, right? So if you're using that privilege to, not just talk to a woman respectfully, right? But even just how they talk to their boys, you know what I'm saying? Like how they treat their friends, how they treat their brothers, their sisters, their family members, like all of that is an influence versus just like, if you're seeing an individual that talks in a way that's slandering and not healthy for the people they're in relationships with, that's the continuous dynamic and generational curse that gets carried with the male, which is often the one that we call and I'm gonna say this because I'm keeping it real, we call the head of the household, the head of the table. But I'm not so much sure, I'm gonna get a little religious here, I'm not so much sure that it's always talking about the word starts with us and ends with us, and whatever we do and don't do starts and goes through me. To me, maybe that more so means, you know what, like if this family has a, take one to the chest, it's going to hit me first. You know what I mean? Let me take this one for the family. You know what I'm saying? Whether that means, hey, wife, you know what? Let me stay at home with the kids. You go do your thing. Or whether that means, you know what? Let me work an extra shift because we're not pulling enough right now to provide for the family. Or whether that means, hey, we dropped the ball somewhere. Instead of beginning to scapegoat and look around at your boys or your homies and say like, hey, that was your fault. It's just like, bro, I'm gonna take that one. That's on me. And so I think that influence, man, is just key in looking at the humility from the man as far as what trajectory we need to turn, because it hasn't looked like that in the past.
For sure. Matt, man, go ahead and chime in.
Yeah, man. I like how I said the male figure is so dynamic, and I'm just gonna speak for me personally. So I feel like in my life I attached more to my grandfather. I feel like he, I call him my dad just because, when your father, like my father, was absent with me growing up, that's who I attracted to. And I can definitely say the father figure, the male is very important. That role is very important because I look at how he imparted into my life, just my foundation period, my understanding of God, just everything. Without that, I probably would have been a lot more out there or lost, and being older now and now mentoring younger kids, and then I really look at, before I start mentoring them, how, they act out in school or, they talk back to their mother or, they're being really rebellious, and these kids, that role is missing from their life. So the acting out and those type of things come from dealing with emotions and feelings and not having any outlet to burst whatever's going on with them, because there is that divide. A mother can be a mother, but there's some things that just a man has to do that when a child doesn't have that, especially a son. We're talking about son, especially a son, when he doesn't have that. It seems that children seem to go into a direction of aggression or just acting out, period. So it's definitely important, and I feel like with the absence of it, there's a break in, and there's the foundation that isn't really set. And so I feel like people, just me personally, from what I can see, I feel like people, they tend to stumble more. It takes a little bit more time to, figure it out, probably stump their foot a couple more times than someone who's always had that direction. We definitely need direction as children when you don't have that. And I feel like true direction comes from a male head. I'm not just this just for me personally, but so it's definitely important to have that head for sure.
For sure. First of all, I agree with everything everybody said. I will bring a different perspective. I'm gonna say this first. We finna take a left turn right after I answer this because it's something that Ashford said that I want to talk about. I told y'all this was coming, so just be listening. But for me, you know, my mom was a very, very pivotal piece in my development, right? You know, I thank God for her being such a strong influence and really showing me things. So like for me growing up, college wasn't a choice. Like you're going to school. And she started to develop me thinking outside of a box when I was younger. So I say that to say I didn't realize the importance of male influence until I got older. Until now I'm a husband and I'm responsible for another person. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I like? What do I do? I've only been worried about Julian my whole life. So it was like, yo, this is where I tell people like when you're in this situation and you get married, that's when the biggest challenge hits me because I'm like, I don't know what to do. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't grow up seeing a man take care of his home or deal with issues or be able to work through his emotions while watching another person's emotions and making sure they're okay. That's where I seen my biggest gap as far as this is why the male influence is so important for me. I did not have that. But other than that, like Tim said, when you're growing up, I had male influence as far as coaches. But one thing that I missed out on that I realized, again, as I got older, they weren't Black. Not to say that the male influence wasn't positive, but do you know what it can do for a 10, 11, 12-year-old boy to see a Black man in that type of role? It gives you inspiration. It gives you motivation. I can look at this and do it. And I didn't have that. So that's another thing. I'm like, I've never had a Black teacher in my life. What? Like, you know what I'm saying? I never had one. So like even Ashford, like the effect and influence that you can have on a little Julian coming up because he sees you in the role is such a positive impact. So that's where I see male influence being important, especially for Black men, because we need to see Black men in better roles than just rapper, actor, hooper, football player. Like we need to start celebrating our assistant principals. We need to start celebrating our accountants. We need to start celebrating our guys driving trucks and owning their own business and talking about investments and stocks because we just don't get to see that. So how do you have a dream if it's not in front of you? That's where I seen the male influence. Now, where I'm going to take this in the right turn, Ashford, you mentioned something, head of household. I think society has created a definition of what that means, especially in the Black community, and it's strictly about dominance and money. And I do not believe to be head of household, you need to have money to do so. And a lot of people associate, I'm providing, I'm head of household because you're paying bills. Well, are you really providing if your wife is lonely every night? Are you really providing if your kids don't see dad because he's working 48 hours, 60 hours a week? There's other pieces of providing than just the financial aspect. And a lot of people only think about that and miss out on everything in between. So I just want y'all's opinion on that.
Wow. Well, that's good. I'll chime in first on that because me and you, Ju, we we got a similar story. When I've been married, and I've been through that, and actually, I've learned so much through my marriage. It's such a growing experience, right? So definitely growing experience. But definitely. You hitting on all the parts. I could be with my work and everything, I could be great at being a breadwinner. I could pay all the bills. I could do all that. So it's about, do I want quantity of life or quality, right? So I feel like that's a good divider. So like I can provide the quantity, but the quality of my life, me being gone all the time, me not being there for my wife or my daughter, or being a father, spending time with her. I can provide for my daughter all day, buy her whatever she wants, but actually being there and spending the time, taking her to school on the first day, daddy-daughter dates, like those are the things that are important to me. So that's quality over quantity, so I may not be the breadwinner, but I'll be investing so much more into my wife, into my children by just spending the time, being there, laying the foundation for her, just like it was laid for me. you know, making sure that my child is brought up knowing who God is, you know, and really just having all of that, because that's important, you know, or making sure that I'm leading my relationship with my spouse and making sure that we're both growing spiritually and we're not separating or living singles, you know, and all of this. So I definitely agree with that. That's all I got.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I agree for sure. Obviously, money isn't everything. It can't buy you those moments in time that you get to treasure forever. You know, especially when it comes to you know, if you have kids and everything, being there. So I think being the head is more. It's like kind of push. You know, like kind of push on, like, you got to be ahead. You got to do this. You got to make money X amount of money to keep this, to keep your family happy, when in reality, if you just simply go to your kids' game, you know, skip out on a big mega deal and being there for your kids, that shows more of that quality that Matt was talking about in life. And it got me to thinking when Julian took this right turn, left turn, whatever turn we're on, like, and I'll present it, and maybe we'll get to this later. But for me, I know for myself personally, one of the goals that I had in my life, which I feel like I'm fulfilling right now, is like, I wanted to be something that I didn't have, which was a dad, which was, you know, that opportunity to just love on a kid, you know, have a wife, have not necessarily all the glitz and glamour, you know, house on stuff, but, you know, a family. So I'll present that. But really, I just feel like the head is really pushed. So I do agree. Like, it's just it's kind of lost its sense of direction for that title, I feel like. So,
Man, Tim, you hit it on the head, like, literally, no pun intended. But
yeah.
You literally hit it on the head where you just said, like, it's lost this direction, as many things that we've interpreted over years, right? Because so much of it just comes down to the semantics of it. Like, what do we mean by the head of the household? Do you mean like leader? Do you mean like that's the first person you see when you knock on the door? Do you mean like this is the breadwinner? Like, what do you mean by that? When you really analyze, like, head, to me, I look at that as maybe the person that's looked at as to lead, you know what I'm saying, or facilitate, you know what I'm saying? And in a lot of ways, you know, leadership in this day and age is kind of defined as a servant leader.
Exactly.
And you can only be a servant leader if you're a humble person that's always looking for what others around you need. So it completely takes. Go ahead, man.
Oh, no. I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, we're just agreeing, brother. Keep preaching.
That was agreeing.
It is hard to continue this characteristic of dominance, power, and money if you are a servant leader of your household. You know what I'm saying? So it depends on how, and that's why it goes back to your original question of just like, why the male influence is so important. Well, because you can only become what you see. And depending on what you see or what you haven't seen, that may be in your mind what you interpret as this is what's right, this is what's wrong. And very similar to what Julian's saying, I mean, hopefully at this point in our lives, you know, sound like we're all around that, graduated from college and different relationship experiences and, you know, trying to grow on our own right now. I think at this point, we've all seen different examples of male influences around us. And the 21st century male influence probably looks a lot different than what it used to. So I think that's a good thing, like having this right here and Julian spinning this right now. But I think that servant leaderhood just takes a totally different context of when we originally say like head of household. I think like there's almost a part of me that cringes when I hear that sometimes, like head of household, versus when I hear like servant leader, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to be about that. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to see them. I want my neighbors to see me serving my children and my wife, and vice versa, right? Co-power. They don't just see me serving her, but also like her, like us working together and our kids seeing that, right? And so I think that servant leader term is really what I want to push for any male that may be watching this. Is like, it's okay to call yourself the head of the household, but I guess what I'm getting to is how do you define that in its action when it comes down to it?
Right. Go ahead, Matt.
No, I was just agreeing. That's deep. I like that.
Yeah,
Servant.
it is.
Servant leader for sure.
Yeah, I like
Like-
that a lot too, man. And one of the things that I would say that I think a lot of people forget when you're going through these definitions and you're going through this, people on the outside are giving advice to a marriage, and the thing that's missing for the definition is communication. As a man, if you're doing your servant leadership like you're saying, you're communicating with your wife, you're communicating with your children. So then you maybe understand that they want quality of life. They're not necessarily looking for quantity, which we understand is a hard balance. Like, it's a thin line. You want to progress. You want to give them everything that you didn't have, but you also didn't have a male influence. You can't forget that. Like, if you want to give them everything you have, it's just not financially. So I say communicate, speak with your wife, figure out what she's looking for, figure out what she's needing. You communicate what you're looking for and what you're needing, and then you define that role, you too, and don't give a damn about what everybody on the outside thinks, because that influence can ruin a marriage if you're looking at the next marriage and it has nothing to do with what you guys are
Wow.
Straight up.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I was married a long time ago in my first marriage, and there was many factors. It was my fault. I'm not gonna get too deep into details, but when I broke away from that marriage and I was working on myself and defining and kind of deciding what I wanted in my next relationship, what I wanted it to look like, what I wanted in it, I had to first come to that realization. I won't get too spiritual. Like, I gotta take some things to God. I gotta work on myself. I need to take some self evaluations and see, what do I need to improve on. And I feel like, especially in the African American community, for us, that's hard at times because we've been placed in this box of just get over it. Just get over it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. It's not necessary. Like, it's not necessary. Like, no, it is. Like, how can you, like, if these athletes are out here going back in the game film, game tape of where they failed and where they can improve on, how come I can't do that personally myself without feeling that shame? And that's the other part, is that I feel like for African American males, that shame is really hard to open ourselves up to that vulnerability. So, and once again, to get back to the first question, Julian, I think that male influence, I didn't have that influence of how to deal with that vulnerability and handling it well.
That
because
is dope.
It's one of those things, like, I guess I'll get personal. Like, it's one of those things where you're like, you know what? Yeah, I can do it, and fine. And in my mind, but in your mind is one thing, but in your heart's another thing, because like, it's like, yeah, the surface stuff, like, yeah, I'll just get over it. That's fine. But it's still eat away at you time and time again. And so, like when I got into this next relationship that I'm in currently, one of the things that I knew from myself that was important was just to serve. And when we were talking about servanthood leadership, like, that was one of the things that I knew I needed to work on from the beginning. It was like, all right, I'm just simply serve, regardless of what it is, regardless of what the task is, all that stuff. Just serve, because that shows that vulnerability, that side, that pain. That's like, this is really hard, but I'm going to do it because I know that in the long run, it's going to build that foundation of the relationship, regardless if it was, with my wife or, with a friend or a coworker and stuff. It's just that characteristic that's needed in the male influence, is showing servanthood, servantship. So I didn't mean to go off on a tangent. So.
No, you good, but I'm gonna go ahead and say this to all of y'all: stop like apologizing for getting spiritual. All right, like, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
We're Christian. We can talk about God. If people hear it and they don't like that, that's their choice. but like we Christians, we proclaim God's
Yeah,
glory in everything we do, man. So
Amen.
it's fine.
yeah, I feel you.
What's going on, buddy?
He can't hear you. I got the earbuds and he's saying
Oh.
hi. Can you say hi? He says hi. My daughter's here too. You want to say hi, Maddie? Oh, she's going back inside. Oh, you okay? Yeah, she clumsy like her dad.
Oh,
Yeah,
Tim, you got a Maddie too?
Yeah, Madison. That's
Okay.
I got the
man.
namer, so Madison.
Cool.
So
yeah,
I got a Madeline.
I just want y'all, like, again, it's okay to talk about God. I'm a Christian. This Vitality podcast is a Christian podcast. Now, I might say a cuss word or two, and that's a whole different conversation because I don't think that's against the law either. But whatever.
No, that's a conversation for another day.
It's a whole different conversation. But one of the things that you talked about, Tim, as far as the vulnerability, I think people need to understand too, there's a certain amount of humility it takes to be a servant leader and be a man. And a lot of what we deal with as men, especially, I know for me, coming from a product of a single mother, I was hard. I was tough because I thought I had to be. I wanted to be the male so fast because I don't want to see my mom struggle. So I'm trying to help with what I can and do whatever. You forget that, like you said, you don't know how to really work through emotions.
Yeah, you can't process it well at all at first.
And then another thing you said is taking time to analyze data. That's a lot of humility that it takes to do that. And you got to shut your ego down to be able to look in the mirror and reflect. Even in my situation through the divorce I had, and Ashford knows a lot about it, I can look back as bitter and angry as I was and take time to look in the mirror and say, Julian, where did you go wrong? What did you do wrong? Regardless of what happened, okay, I can be better at being patient. I can be better at communicating. I can be better at just spending quality time. I'm an only child, so I like my space, but that's not going to work. And this is the stuff I'm analyzing and reflecting. And then the biggest one for me was, and this one, I'm sharing this and I'm being vulnerable, but God told me, you made your marriage more important than me. That hit me in my face. That hit me in my face. He said, you made everything about your marriage more important than me. And I'm like, that was the biggest slap in the face. And it was a big ego. Like, I got to humble myself to realize that I had fault in this too. Like, I can't just blame. But as a man, letting go of that pride and ego, especially as Black men who, like I said, raised by single mothers. That's something we hold on to because we're trying to, and this could be just me, but we're trying so hard to prove that we are men because we didn't have it around us. So it's like, no, I'm a man. Like I did it all despite not having a father. I'm a man. And it really built a chip on my shoulder that once I start reflecting, I'm like, yo, you got to remove this. Like, this ain't going to work. This is not a good place to be. Even mentally, you're not stable because you're so defensive because that's all you know, because that's what you grew up doing, because you had to be a man. Like, that's what you were. So go ahead, John.
I got a good one. Well, I got a good one. So let's say like for us coming from single mothers, and what's crazy is my mom, she wasn't single. I mean, she was single after my father, but then my mother remarried. But even being remarried, my mother, my mother still it's still like I did not have, really a father. You know what I'm saying? Even being married to someone else for all them years, I never really got that from that person. But going back to what I was going to, so me coming from a broken home and then getting married, and then my ex-wife's family being together, being raised by a father, mother, beautiful. Can anybody relate with the comparison, like being dealing with the comparison, like or being compared to what you didn't have?
Are you saying like comparing like you and your ex-spouse's relationship to like her parents' relationship or your parents' relationship?
Right.
So,
or
I guess I'll chime in. Yeah, I guess I'll chime in first. I didn't mean to interrupt, but like I thought about that, but I know for my wife and I, for my wife, her parents never married, but they were together for many years. And as for me, my mom, she was married twice. She got divorced the first time, and then the second time, my dad, he passed away. So when it came time, when we got into this relationship and compare, there was really no comparisons. I would say probably the next comparison would be like our close friends that were that are also interracial relationships. It's funny, like all the dudes are black and then all the wives are white in our little like compound of family and friends. But
look like a basketball game. God dang it.
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much. But like that comparison was, I don't think it was a stigma. It wasn't a stigma in both times I've been married, but it was hard not to it was, are you guys there? Sorry, I had a call coming. It was hard not. Sorry, I had a call coming. I was making sure I was still being heard. It was hard not to compare at times, especially when, and I know this has probably happened a few times, regardless, where it's like, well, such and such is doing this for his wife, or such and such is doing for that. How come you can't do that? And it's like, first off, I'm not such and such. Such and such is different because such and such had a different experience. Like, in like for my friends that I'm really close to, like they all came from similar broken homes. Like one of my best friends, he was the best man at my wedding, second wedding. His stepdad is the only dad that he knows. Just like for my son and I, because he's not mine biologically, I stepped in immediately, pretty much from the beginning, and he's been there, so he calls him dad, and him and his second brother and his younger brother, one of his younger brothers, that's not their dad, but their youngest brother, that's his dad. So, but they all going well together, and he's been a great example of how a black man can come in, step in, regardless of the situation, assess what's going on, but still be willing to go down that road. And that's how I wanted to be whenever I got into this relationship now, was I wanted to step in and fill that void and be something that, first off, to make sure that little boy, that my son never experienced not having that, because hey, that's not fair to him. He didn't ask to be born into that situation. Right. So like my thinking was if he's being born in a situation, why not make the best of it for him, that he doesn't realize that was ever a possibility. And I think that it takes a lot of sacrifice, a lot of servanthood, which I think that's the theme of this part of the show. It takes a lot of commitment to show that you are better than what the standards that the world and society has placed upon you as a black man. I'm speaking directly to the community, and B, it shows that. It shows like that grittiness, that toughness, that willingness and that want to make it succeed no matter what, knowing that you're going to take nicks and bruises along the way, which I know that I have personally. But all those nicks and all those bruises, just to see that kid smile, just to see him run around, just to know that he can scream and yell and I can get mad at it, but understand that at the end of the day, he's still happy, is worth it. And that's where I think the evolution of the black male is coming to, because I know that there are still, unfortunately, some deadbeat dads that don't come around their children, and that's unfortunate. But I also know that they still have a chance, and I still pray this for them, a chance of redemption to either down the road reconcile with their kids, or if they're fully remove the situation, evolve into something better. And that's where I think the influence of, once again, to go back to the first question, I think that's where the male influence is needed, is to help evolve, because like, if you think about it, we're that X factor of cultivating and building and nurturing that next generation, so that when they get to our age and we're all, in the wisdom years, gray haired and everything everything like that, they can carry and move it on and move on that evolution of the male influence in a positive light. So
Go ahead, Ashford.
Yeah, man. Tim, that was beautifully said, brother. That was beautifully said. Getting back to Matt's, question and just talking about, the comparison of the relationships, whether that's comparing to other relationships in your own family or just your homies and the dynamic out there. And to just give a little background, I come from the same dynamic, Matt, in the sense of just like mother and father being born, we're together. And then by the time I was like 6, father made a choice that took my life for a very long time. And my mother was pretty much doing the single mom thing until I was pretty much in middle school. And then, the whole remarriage thing. And I'm thankful to have a relationship with both of them now, but it does give some different perspective as far as just how do you assess how you're doing and how your dynamic's doing. I would say number one, man, one of my mentors brought up he introduced the concept to me like a few years ago called mimetic theory. And it's just this idea that like, we don't really know what we want until we see what others have. And the reality of it is like, even when we see what others have or what they're doing, or how their, I don't know, significant other may be doing things this way, or the significant other's doing things that way, or even just their friend group, what I'm saying, what their friend group looks like, what their friend group does, and the income of their friend group. Even if we don't really want that, we want it the way that they want it, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like that whole mama mentality. Like, everybody wants to be Kobe, but like, do you want it? It's not even that you really want what Kobe wants, because Kobe wants to be better than MJ, right? But so what we really want, though, we want that same hunger. What Kyrie wants is that same drive and hunger as Kobe did. He didn't really want the same thing as Kobe because Kobe had his why, his purpose. You know what I'm saying? So now if you just want to want like Kobe does, it is impossible to meet that because there's just a different purpose behind what you want and what they want. So the reality of the theory is like, you're never going to be validated by looking through a shattered glass, a shattered mirror. And one of my homeboys sent a little video to me yesterday. Will Smith was talking about how so often we take advice from broken mirrors, right? We're looking into this mirror and it's broken, and you're getting advice from it. And sometimes Will was talking about how we'll even go as far to adjust ourselves in this broken mirror just to appease others and to prove it to ourselves. And that's what so much of it is based off of. And it really does just come back to that, where does your foundation lie, right? I mean, in one of my classes right now, the very first thing my professor has to do is determine our why. Mm-hmm. Determine what is your why? Why do you want to go through this? And it's true. I mean, like, why do you want to be in your relationship that you have? Why do you want the job that you have? And while the implications of it may not always line up with what we want, we know that these steps get us closer to our why. You know what I'm saying? And that's what drives that purpose. But it just kind of comes back to when you go to compare and look at what other people are doing. And I'm the worst at it. I do it all the time, man. But I think you just have to continue to bring yourself down to earth and say, for example, I think Lecrae said this, the biggest critics in it are the ones that ain't never did it. And it's constantly that. I mean, the best parenting advice I ever get are from people that don't have one kid. They only got one kid, but they have all the advice. They have all of the quick fixes, and you should think about this, you should think about that, and why don't y'all just do this? You all should live here. And it's just like, you literally are just going all off of ideal and philosophy right now. Right. Like, nothing you're doing is an action, or you actually living it. You know what I'm saying? So not that really answers the question, man, but I think it's so natural for us to do in so many different ways. And so I think I'm going to continue to do it, but I think how you continue to wrestle with it is what makes the difference. Are you moving from being jealous of that to where it's becoming toxic in your relationship? And like that late night conversation is like, now you're comparing, like now you're wanting something that neither one of you even got into the relationship for in the first place. Or is it more so just like, I admire how they do that. I appreciate the way they do that. That might not necessarily be our thing, but I admire that. Or it's like, hey, I admire that. I want to work on us getting closer to that. And even just individually, right? I admire how my boy Juju can reach out to be like, yo, hop on this with me. You know what I'm saying? Let's have this conversation. There may be some people that view it. Dang, like that takes a lot of guts and confidence right there. Like I admire that. I need to take a chip off of that.
So I will go ahead and, since we quoting lyrics, you talked about the broken mirror, and there was a line in a song that I don't think a lot of people caught that was deep as heck to me. That Jack Harlow song, What's Poppin', and went deep, like went big. He said like something, this is for my haters. I'm getting sick of taking advice from people that can't even stare at reflections. And I don't know if people didn't catch that, but when he said it, I was like, whoa, like that's deep as heck. You can't even look at yourself in the mirror, but you can tell me everything about life. So when you said the getting advice from a broken mirror, so to speak, like, bro, that resonated with me, and I thought about that immediately. But
Bars.
yeah, facts. So when moving forward now, as far as the next topic was, what struggles did you have growing up and trying to become a man? So we talked about male influence, and we've kind of dove a little bit into it, but I'll go ahead and start, and I'll give you guys a little bit about my background. So my real dad is in the picture now, but wasn't for most of my life. My stepdad entered the picture when I was 2 years old, and life was great. So I did get to see a couple that was married. I saw some stuff that I didn't want to see, but by the age of 10, you know, my stepdad became addicted to crack cocaine. So when I'm talking about what struggles did you have growing up and trying to become a man, I'm struggling with the fact that I don't feel like I'm wanted because my dad wasn't there and then my stepdad left. So now I have two fathers that were roles or influence in my life, and they both left me. So what does that develop in me? Anger, bitterness. But in order to be tough and try not to let my mom see me worry, I held all that inside. So what that caused me to realize is the older I got, I did not know how to shift through emotions. And in society, especially as Black men in Black communities, we are always taught to be a man, be a man. And I grew up and I realized all the like, don't be emotional, don't cry is a bunch of bullshit, excuse my language, because men are the most emotional beings in this damn world. And when you hear emotion, it doesn't mean I'm crying,
Right.
which everybody associates with it. It means I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm mad, and you can't think rationally. You begin to lash out. You don't know how to communicate when you're doing this. So all this stuff that I had issue with, I'm trying to shift through while going to college, meeting girls, trying to get married, trying to become a husband. And I felt like looking back on it from the start, I just was behind. I didn't have a healthy start. So that was my biggest struggle because I never dealt with the stuff until I got older. So you put it, we're prone to, especially in Black communities, throw stuff under the rug and just act like it didn't happen. Oh, this person beat so-and-so. We're not going to talk about it anymore. Like, we just move on. It's never addressed. There's still a root that's still within your foundation that you haven't addressed, and it's still growing. Even, I don't care how many carpets you put over it, it's still growing. So that was my biggest struggle in developing as a man, was I just couldn't shift through emotions, and I'm still working on it now. And I think that once I'm able to continue to get better and better at that, that makes me a better husband. Once that happens, that'll make me a better father. It'll make me a better coworker. It'll make me a better son of God. It'll make me a better podcaster, because a lot of Black men just don't know how to communicate or work through their emotions. And I think part of that is because not only do we not have the male influences, but the male influences that we do have, some of them can't do it either. They weren't taught well either. So it's just a long line of wrongdoing where I feel like now, like you said, the definitions are changing. The father now looks different in 2021. We got to start hitting these things and passing that on to our youth so they can start developing and becoming better. Hence why I talk about mental health and going to counseling. That's another taboo thing within our community that a lot of people don't talk about, that I struggled with. And once I did it, I got better, but I was embarrassed. why? Like, what are you embarrassed for making yourself better? So those are the things I struggle with. One of y'all could pick up next and kind of talk about your struggles.
Yeah, man. The only reason why I jumped out, because I'm just like, so many thoughts that just kept coming to my head as you were talking, bro. I'm just like, I gotta get these out before I lose them. So selfishly, I had to jump in there. Sorry about that, y'all. You know, it probably would be a disservice if I didn't like point out those specific father figures while I'm on here. You know, Al Collins, starting with him, my biological father brought me into this world, and my mom, and like, even though he missed a huge chunk of my life, like, done a really great job of just like investing and building that bridge now. My stepdad, Daryl Johnson, I mean, he stepped in, part of big reason why I got into football and just filled in the gaps in a lot of ways, man, and just introduced me and talked to me about a lot of things, you know, interested me and like sparked up a lot of things I had never thought about before. And then my wife's dad, you know, David Hayes, man, I mean, dude is a standard guy, you know what I'm saying, through and through. I mean, any project, I mean, he literally, when he comes around, like, I gotta like puff up my chest a little bit and like walk and talk a little different, because I'm just like constantly trying to like, this dude just, he sets a standard for what it means to be a father, a dad, and just a good dude. All three of them do. Now, is anybody ever gonna do it perfect? Absolutely not. Am I ever gonna be anything like any of them? No. But I'm sure all three of them are going to have already had some influence in me one way or other. And there are a bunch of other male figures, but I think there's like two like analogies that come to my head when I think about this question, Julian, if you don't mind me going on a tangent for a little bit, as far as just like, because the thing is like what we missed, right?
Right.
And there's two analogies that come with me. Not that these cover all the ground, but two analogies. One of them is, you ever got a big puzzle piece, 100-piece puzzle, and you finished up the puzzle, and you're just like, man, I'm missing this one piece right here. Like, I can't even finish this right here. But you at least know what you're missing, that one piece. You're just not sure where you lost today, not sure what it is, but you can at least identify, like, I need this piece. And then there's this other analogy where there's this home project that you have to get done, and you run into a fork in the road, and you're just like, not only do I not know what to do for this, I'm not even sure what tool I need for this right here. And I feel like for me, I feel like I'm often in the latter of the two analogies. I think both of them are very powerful in the sense of just like how it can define like what we're constantly trying to feel, right? But I feel like sometimes it's hard for me to answer the question of what I lost, because I'm still trying to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I really don't even know until I like, because I mean, until we don't know what's gonna happen in the future. So sometimes you like get to that doorstep and you just like, oh shoot, I ain't been up against this before. Mm-hmm. And I've even caught, I don't know if y'all have done this, but I've even caught myself in a position where I'm just like, who should I call right now about this? Nah, he gonna talk too much. He ain't gonna listen. Nah, I know he ain't gonna have no input on this. Nah, he too busy. You just like, nah. And so you don't even know who to talk to sometimes about some of this. And I think that's where sometimes we talk about like just manhood, is when you're just like, bro, you're just gonna have to go into this. You know what I'm saying? Be present with it. Ask whatever question. Maybe the people that you end up reaching out to aren't the best people, but they are somebody that can at least help you process through it a little bit. And that's where a lot of that manhood comes from, man. It's like not having all your tools together, but you go in that wilderness being like, all right, I guess this is what it's all about. You know what I'm saying? And all any of us, all four of us are trying to do is just continue that bridge for what we didn't get. As my man Matt said earlier, like that's all this whole life thing is really about. Right. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you didn't get or whatever's not out there, you're trying to put it out there. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I'm at right now.
Dope. Who's next? Veasy.
Yeah, you want me? I'll grab on it. Now that's it's good. I can say for myself, I don't know if it was like this for any of you, but in my 20s, like it was like in between 21 to 25-ish, it's like I kind of went on a journey. Like I was missing something, just like Ashford said, I was missing that piece of the puzzle. And I literally had to go out there and get it. You know what I'm saying? And for me, it was trying to restore broken bridges in my family. So I wanted to reconnect with my biological father and really just get an understanding, because that's another thing too. Growing up, sometimes in our minds, because of things that happen between our parents or just whatever, things that we can't understand because we're so young, we build up our own idea of how someone is or something could be. And until you actually go out and, seek for it yourself. And that's what I had to do. And then so for today, me and my father have me and my biological father have a wonderful relationship. I see him often when I go out to California. And that was a healing process that I had to go through in my life. And, that was therapy for me. And I've taken therapy and those things too. But yeah, so that hit home with me when Ashford said about the missing piece of the puzzle, just filling in those gaps. And I'm glad that I was actually able to do that because, I think there's a lot of men and young men out there who probably don't get those same opportunities or really do that for themselves. Trying to stay back on topic too. So
you don't got to do that, man. You don't got to do that, bro. But we're talking about just the struggles you had trying to become a man.
Right. So struggles trying to become one. I think I can relate with Tim as well. For me, it was I want to be everything that I didn't have. So I had plenty of bad examples, to go by. I had plenty of those. So I knew what I didn't want to do, especially now being a father now. To my beautiful daughter, shout out to Madeline, I love you. Being a father now, it's just like, boy, so I, with all the bad examples, I know what good I want to do. I want to know how I want to impart into someone else's child or, anybody I come into contact with, and yeah, but I'm learning as I go. I feel like we all are, we're all learning. We're learning from the bad. We're learning from the bad situations and mistakes and things. And we're learning from the good that we do. I think it's just staying consistent. I think consistency is key. Communication is definitely key. We need to learn to not hold everything in as men, as young boys growing into men, you got to learn how to let some of that stuff out, man, find outlets. And that's kind of what I've been teaching some of the boys I mentor, finding a positive outlet to let out those aggressions, those emotions, the things that you can't speak and you can't talk to me about or anybody else about. Let's transfer this energy into a bag, or let's, you want to swim, let's go swim this out, or we're just whatever. So I think the struggle for me, getting back, the main struggles for me was that not being able to, not feeling comfortable enough to be able to feel the way I actually feel, and then not having an outlet for that. So carrying that for years and years and years, I think that was what was the struggle for me, living in an absent father situation, holding on to all of this and not having any outlet. And then, eventually it reaches a point where it breaks you, you break. And I had to reach that breaking point. And thankfully, from the foundation that I've had from my positive role models growing up, and it does take a village, from the positive role models that I've had growing up, my grandfather, James Beard, and just my uncles or just anybody that I've had in my life, and I really love Tony Evans, like to death. That's my church too. So just, finding people to grab onto, but that's about all I got.
Yeah, man. I like it. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah.
I'm unmuting myself. Sorry. Man, it's this question is kind of hard for me only because one thing I'll get a little bit personal. I'm actually adopted, and so when I'm speak of my parents, it could be technically adopted parents because I don't know my biological parents. So in that sense already, you could say like, oh, he's already at disadvantage. And then, oh, he's at more of a disadvantage when his father dies. And so now he's out here with a brother that's 10 years older than him. And then he has 3 older brothers that are already in their 20s, early 20s, almost 30s, almost having their kids of their own and stuff. And like for me, that what I struggled with, I think more than the male influence was just having my brothers there. I think for me personally, because that was the next line of defense of who you looked up to as your own sibling. And for me, luckily my brother, he was around a lot, even though he was still trying to navigate around and find himself too, because he lost the same person that I did, just like my mom lost her husband. And so I gleaned and really weaned on that, like just held on to that, because like that relationship was evolving itself where, like, yeah, my brother, I can look at him like a father figure, but he doesn't want to be that. He wants to be my brother. He's going to make sure that I'm all right. He's going to make sure that I'm okay. And my three older brothers, they have done a really great job checking up on us and everything throughout the years and stuff. And we're all closely knit, all closely tight. But I think something that I really could, that I say that I really did struggle with, was just what was the ideal role that I needed in that relationship when it got to that time when I was getting married. Like, who could I talk those things out to that same color as me, that has something similar? And I didn't really have that. And I did have grandparents. I did have two grandfathers. Actually, I had three. One passed away at the time, but I had two that were really different, but I still gleaned on, and they did a really good job of influencing me, even though I really didn't get to see them as much. They would call. They would, one put me through Victory for an X amount of years. And that same one that put me through Victory had me on the wheel, and I had no idea. I wasn't expecting that. He had me on, me and my brother. So like just seeing what he did behind the scenes and not putting it out there in the open taught me a lot growing up. Like, yeah, I want to do those things behind the scenes because that's important. And that was important to him, to make sure that I was better off once he was gone. And, that took a lot of pride and sense and a lot of just letting go of the ego. So that was, but to get back on topic before I go off on another tangent, like that was something I really more struggled with, was just how do I have the ideal relationship where it's healthy? Who could I look to and talk to about that? And luckily now, as I've gotten older, I got friends that are going through all the similar things. We're all in that same age range group of going through similar things, and so it's easier now. But then when you're young and you're wild and you're naive and you're looking for that sense of direction, having someone older that, you could call consistently, at wee hours in the night if you're crying, or early hours in the morning, that was something that I had struggled and missed out on. Now, with that being said, my mom did a hell of a job. My mom did a hell of a job. Firsthand, my mom did a hell of a job.
Most definitely.
My mom, I'll brag on her for a second. Shout out.
Wait. Don't do it yet. Don't do it yet. I got an idea.
All right, I'll hold it.
I got an idea at the end that I ain't shared with y'all. Don't do it yet.
I'll hold it. But my mom did a damn good job. 5 boys, having to raise 2 very young on her own when she's age 49, doing it by herself. Yeah, my mom did a hell of a job. So I'll end it right there.
So a couple things. Number one, going back, I'll say this first. Another thing I really struggled with was trusting males in general, because, and you guys might not have been in the same boat, but I had one that wasn't there. I had one that left. So it was really hard for me to be vulnerable enough to trust someone, especially a male, because I'm like, you're probably going to leave, or, so dealing with that. Going back to Matt's point, and it just popped in my head, where the comparison for me started? It wasn't as a husband in another family. I was comparing growing up my situation to the people that had parents, which pissed me off as a kid. Why can't I have my dad at home? Why are we struggling? But I got other friends, like we're at one point we're homeless. Like we didn't know where we were going to live. I had to have a school donate gifts for me for Christmas so we would have one. So it's like, that was where I was really started comparing, because I'm like, well, he got a mom and a dad. Like he got the shoes, he got the video games, like he got all that. And then it started making me question, and this is where growing up, being a Christian is even more of a deeper topic, is because not only am I questioning like what's going on, I'm questioning God. Why am I the one that got to struggle? What the hell did I do that I don't have dad at home and me and mom don't? So that's another thing when you talk about comparisons that I really dealt with growing up, because I lived in a predominantly white neighborhood. Like it was 8 black kids where I was going in Norman. And we're in Norman, Oklahoma. That's a pretty ritzy area for the most part. Brookhaven, you got like Bob Stoops and all them people living over there. And I'm going to school with his neighbors. So they got all the clothes and everything. And I'm comparing my life to that, and just it's continuing to build bitterness towards my father, even though he has nothing really to do with that. He does, but he doesn't. It's building bitterness even towards my mother. And I'll have to openly admit that. Like, I got mad at her. Why can't we have the life that everybody else has? So I just wanted to touch on that.
Good.
Yeah, that's good, bro.
But let's go to the next one. And it's gonna suck going to this next one because Julian can't talk. I gotta be quiet and listen on this one. The next topic we're bringing up is, how did this affect or determine your development as a father/husband? Now, I can talk about the husband aspect, but honestly, in this sense, I tell people all the time, I love these opportunities to have discussions because I learn so much. Every conversation I have, somebody is dropping a perspective or something that they went through that I can take and add to the gems that I've collected and make myself better. So I am going to literally sit back. I'm putting myself on mute, and I'm going to let you guys answer this question because I really want to learn from your experience. So the question again is, how did growing up being a Black man raised by a single mother affect your development as a father? And you can say husband too. We've already addressed that, but I'm looking more at the father aspect. So whoever wants to go ahead. I'm on mute.
Well, let's do this. Who has the most children? Oh, that's Tim. Tim. All right. It's on you, Tim.
Let Ashford go first.
You got the, yeah. Oh, I'll jump in there with this one. I'll try to be clear and concise with this. I would say I'm gonna talk about the husband role first, because I know for me, and just growing up in different experiences with my household, not that my upbringing, my perspective is the only or best one or most crucial one or most traumatized one out there. We all have our scars and we recognize that, but I think for me, knowing how that impacted our family and how it impacted my mother and really everybody around, I think for me, what I'm constantly thinking about, even though it gets messy at times, I'm constantly thinking about, if anything ever happened to me, what condition am I leaving her in? Not that that's always the healthiest way to approach it, but that's constantly where I am. You know what I'm saying? Like, where am I leaving?
I think that too.
I
think that too as well. I think that too. That scenario runs through my mind at least once every other day, just because it's like, are they in a position that if I'm gone, or if God forbidding something happens, like, are they going to be okay? Like, no one's prepared me. Like, do I get life insurance? Do I do this? Do I do that? Like, what do I do? So that's been another struggle in understanding. But I'll let you continue.
Nah, bro. Like, it's because it's gonna go into my fatherhood, but that question, because I love her, she's beautiful, but it hits on every single thing of, how am I leaving her spiritually? How am I leaving her physically, emotionally, financially? And all of those areas, what condition will she be able to be in? Because of that, I want her to be good as a woman, as an individual, however she continues life. But the state that I leave her in is going to have a direct correlation to what state our children are left in, right? And that's when you start talking about generational. You know what I'm saying? And so, yes, you're thinking about generation, like, what am I leaving here? And then with my kids, it's still that same essential question that Tim and I were just kind of vibing on, of just like, what am I leaving them in? But since I know that, like, they have another adult in their life too, and their mother, and Nana and Papa and their pops and G-Ma and Georgia and all this. But the thing I think about the most of how my upbringing and having a long phase of just single mother household, what I continue to think about is at what stage, I'm gonna try to be real specific with this, with their age right now, when I was their age, what was I experiencing? What do I remember thinking about? And it's a really significant birthday coming up for my oldest this year, because I remember 6 years old, if I remember correctly, was the year that my father made a horrible decision and sent him away for years. And that's just how in my head I assess, like, what do they need? Okay, like, I'm still here, so I'm good. Like, let me keep this momentum going. Because I'm constantly thinking about, like, okay, like, as long as I'm still here, still providing in many different ways, going back to Julian's point, like, I know what they need right now, or I'm assuming what they need right now, because I remember where I was at this age right here and what happened. You know what I'm saying? So I'm constantly going through like this parallel, if I got any Marvel fans in here, multiverse in my head of just like, I remember where I was at this age right here and what I was going through. Okay, with their age right now, what was going on? And I'm constantly playing both of those movies in my head, because to some degree, not that I know exactly what to do, but that helps me at least a bit of a guidance of just like, either it helps affirm, what I am doing, or it kind of challenges to help me modify a little bit of where I'm coming from. And there's going to be a phase where I'm just like, man, like there was just my mom at this phase right here. So with my oldest right now, it's just like, okay, there was just my mom. So like all through elementary, there wasn't a father figure around. And so that's kind of how I continue to play through it, that essential question of what am I leaving them with? And then just going to, for my kids specifically, when I was at this stage in my life, where are they right now versus where I was, and what do they need right now? And honestly, I heard LeBron say this. He's like, they know you care because you're present. You know what I'm saying? And not just being at the house, you know what I'm saying? Because this is several times. You tell my wife, they'll say like five questions to me, and I'm just sitting there like, but then she's like, Ashford, and I'm just like, oh, my bad. And I gotta chime in, you know what I'm saying? So just trying to be present right now, man, because as long as they're seeing me, communicating with me, and doing life with me, that's the biggest thing I feel like I can impact them with.
Yeah, it's funny how you said that you compare, or I don't know if you said compare, but how you with your child's birthday coming up will remember what you were doing at that exact age. And my son, he asks me questions all the time, regardless if we're watching like a cartoon or watching a show, whatever. And he'll ask you like, "Were you watching this when I was your age?" And when he asked me that, I have to really like dig down and like think deep. Like, at this time, like I was like going to kindergarten, like you'll be going to, or like this happened, but it wasn't really that bad. But I remember just traveling a lot, which you haven't done, and at least you have a stable home and being in one area and being familiar with it for so long. So it was kind of interesting that you said that, because it made me think too. Like I've had that similar thought too. Like at least at this age, I know that I'm going to be here for them at this age. Whereas I didn't have that at this age, but I'm thankful overall. I'm thankful that my mom still did what she needed to do to make sure
Yes.
that I never questioned it. And I think that was one of the things that I found positive in having a strong Christian mother that prayed a lot and kept me in church, and my brother and I in church, and made sure that I was always doing the same things as the other regular kids were doing as much as possible. Is that she made sure that I didn't question that. And so like that's one of the things now that I know for a fact that I can do is like, being a part of a marriage where it's a 2-parent household, that both kids know that, mom and dad are always going to be there. Mom and dad are going to be at the games. Mom and dad, we go to the park together. Mom and dad, we go eat out together. We go take random trips here and there. Like that was one of the things for a fact that I knew coming into this world, being a father and being a husband, that was important. Like, let's go take a random trip. Let's go do this for a day. Okay, let's go do that. As long as we're all together, let's go do it, regardless. And like, like I think that's being having that presence in your kids and having that reassurance, like, all right, regardless of what's going on, at least I know I'm in good company. At least my kids know that they are in good company, whether they're with their mom by themselves or with me by ourselves or together. Like making sure that they're in that good company was always important for me to make sure that I had in the relationship and to becoming a father, because I've seen, and I have friends where their parents were either divorced or their dad wasn't around, even their mom wasn't around, and on the flip, it was hard for the male to try to be nurturing when they had to be the protector, and in that sense. So I've learned from watching other similar families and other similar situations, like, okay, I know for a fact that I don't want to be like that. I want to be like this. And I felt like that's helped in the development and the growth. There's still room in there for improvement, obviously. No one's perfect. But at least the intentions, I feel, or I'll say for myself, at least I feel that the intentions and that the actions behind those intentions are pure enough to keep that motivation to the forefront of being there. So, but yeah, I just listening back what you're saying was just confirmation for myself personally. Like, all right, yeah, someone that I had not met before is going through this, something totally similar, and that's good to know. That's really good to know. So, but I guess I'll ask a question.
It's therapeutic, man. I'm telling you.
It is. Yeah. I guess I'll ask this question. Do you feel like at times that being the father, like being the father that you never had or that you wish you had, puts a certain amount of pressure on you, or do you not feel the pressure at all? Like, do you see what I'm saying?
Like, yeah, I get what you're saying, but I'll ask you this: does it come easily for you? Like, does it natural? Does it seem natural for you, like doing it?
At times, yes. I'll say like 80% of the times, yes, and that 20% of no. Like, there's like the situation that I've been in recently with my son being said, like, no.
Yeah.
Like, no, like that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
no.
like
and
nothing
and,
can prepare
and
you for
like,
that. Yeah.
and like on top of that too, like my wife's been has been needing me to to lead in a way where she needs that confirmation. And that's been hard too, because it's like neither of us have been through this before.
Right.
What's been going on. So it's like it's a huge learning curve in a sense, but I know one thing and one thing for sure: God is good all the time, no matter what. And that's really what I've been leaning on from the get go. And that once again comes from the foundation that my mother said to me, that her and my dad had as being associate pastors, was, God's good no matter what. That's something that you can lean on and for a fact. And so like that entire process, like throughout this whole entire process, like being in the stage we are right now with my son, like some things are very damning to hear and things, but like my initial reaction, my initial emotion isn't very, what's the word, isn't really heard of, where it's like, trust God. Like that's like been ingrained in my brain to the point where, like, I'm pretty sure if you took a CT scan of my brain, it's gonna have the words in there, trust God always. And like that's been very important, I feel like, to have going through this stage of life of being a father and being a husband. Trust God. When you don't know the answer, trust God. Go seek his word. Go read. Go see how such and such did this. Even though such and such, in the Bible, Abraham or whoever was father, they necessarily didn't have this, but this type of situation. But how did they react? How did they seek the counsel of others? And how did they seek the counsel of God first and foremost, and then seek the counsel of others? How did they react and stuff? Like that's something that I really heavily and will continue to always lean on is the word of God. Like there's like for me personally, like I've seen too many things, too many miracles, too many things that where I can't not lean on it. Like he's just too good. And that in itself has taught me how to be a father, how to be a better. And like I said, once again, I'm not perfect. It's a daily process of renewing your mind and getting in that mindset of, okay, this happened, regardless of whatever happens, go to God first, go to my dad first. Like that's how I want that relationship for my kids to be. Is what, regardless of what happens, just come to me first and let's talk it out and let's figure it out together. So.
Yeah, no, that's good. I definitely am a firm believer that whatever situation you're going through, it's specially tailored and made for the person who can handle it, you know. And I wouldn't be able to bear it. Neither would Juju, and neither would Ashford.
Mhm.
I'm dealing with a similar situation. Well, not
Hey,
similar,
Matt, hold on.
Yeah.
Are you saying Ashton or Ashford?
I said I'm probably tearing his name up. I said Ashford. I said Ashford.
Bro, don't even trip.
I said
because
Ashford.
Ashford. Yeah, Ashford.
I said it right. Ashford.
Okay,
The first time I
did.
said Ashton. The first time I said Ashton, and then I heard you, and I was like, okay, it's Ashford. I'm really bad with names.
No, you
but
good.
I got it now.
Go ahead, bro.
I got it now.
Go ahead, bro.
Let me just say this too, because I think all our mothers should be proud, especially, and we don't have to say any words. I just think that the three of you all are a great reflection of. It really doesn't matter if you come from two parents with a really good relationship and coming from a broken home. You know, you're the good. And can you still hear me? I think my earbuds are dying. All right, because I feel like the people who go through hard things through life, that like how each of us have, you know, they have a certain element that they have gotten through life from those situations, you know, just like the other side has people with both parents in the home or a great family. You know, they have great foundation, great qualities and everything. So I really enjoyed this whole live that we had going on today with you guys, man. It's awesome. But back to Tim and what you're going through, brother. I'm kind of it's not similar, but my daughter's mother's mother isn't doing very well. So and so we're probably gonna lose her. So I'm having to figure out how, as a father, do I basically introduce my daughter into the idea of death, you know, or where we go after here, or, you know, she's going to lose her grandmother. So it's like, you know, this is new to me. I'm a dad, but me growing up, I don't, it's like, you know, it's nothing my daughter could do that would like ever be wrong, you know? So it's like, I don't want to break my little girl's heart, you know, trying to explain her. Is she ever going to really have an understanding of what's going on? You know, how is she going to react to it? Is she going to be hurt? You know, it's going to be hard, you know, and, you know, she's going to need me more. That's how I'm thinking. So nothing can prepare you for what you have to go through. But I think the whole idea or really what God is trying to show us is in everything that we do, he wants us to always lean towards him for what we need. So in Tim, in your case, I think this is what you had to go through, which was, I mean, it's amazing too. Just I watch what's going on, you know, just through Facebook and things, and just seeing how, I mean, there are literal miracles that have been going on with your situation, you know, because you've leaned so much towards God. And really, that's the only reason why I'm here today is because of God. So I just think I can take that from your situation and my situation is in those instances, it's just us using our foundation and what has been instilled to us by our wonderful mothers and role models to really lean towards him and really rely on him to bring us through those the situation and things that we're going through. That's all I got.
Facts, bro. So I want to say that I appreciate y'all for taking that topic and discussing it. Here's where I came up with for my last idea that I was not going to tell you all due to the fact that I want this to be like extremely authentic. I want to take a minute of everybody's time in which they say something and thank their mothers for the impact that they had on their lives. If you guys feel comfortable with that. If you feel comfortable with that, I'll start it off. And what I plan on doing is once I, announce this podcast, I'm going to share that clip from each of us on Instagram and Facebook for people to kind of see. And I think it would just be a really good tribute to the women who sacrificed to make us who we are. So I'll start it off. Tanya Pettit, Mom Dukes, your son loves you to the moon and back. I appreciate all the sacrifices that you made for me. I appreciate you for showing me what it was like to think outside the box, for instilling a foundation in me that I'm forever growing on till this day. I can say that I went through the toughest part of my life recently, and I was able to fall back on the principles and the morals and the foundation that you instilled in me since I was a child to help me get through. I can never tell you thank you enough. There's not an amount of money, there's nothing that I can give you to show you how grateful I am, but I can truly say within our relationship and with the human that you are, God really put angels on this earth for us to walk around with. And I appreciate you for that. And I love you, Mom Dukes. So whoever want to go next, go ahead.
I'll go. So my mom, Marshawn, Denise, you were awesome. You're very loved. You are one of the strongest women that I've ever seen, of course, because you're my mother. But raising two boys, figuring it out as you went along, just being where you are today, always being a leader in every situation, relationship, or anything that you've taken up. And so that's what you've instilled in me, is just having that drive to never give up on myself and always push. And you're awesome. You're a superwoman. And me and Justin both love you. We definitely wouldn't be here without you. And I just hope that me and my brother are very good representations of the type of woman that you are. I hope that shines through us. And if I could be anything like a parent, like you've been to me growing up, to my daughter, I think my daughter is going to be A-okay. So love you. Oh, it's all right.
I'll go. Patricia Ann Pernell. I appreciate you every single day. I know as you've gotten older and gotten dementia, I've really reflected and just appreciated and thank God for everything that you've done for me. I appreciate all the talks we've had, all the late night prayer sessions that you would wake me up when I was sleeping at 2 and 3 in the morning. You would wake up and pray for me. I appreciate you, being so strong, working 6 to 7 days a week. And I appreciate your friendship. Mom, you're the best. I ain't gonna try to tear up here, but hopefully I can see you soon. You can see Maddie and you can see Hollis again when we come down. But I honestly don't think I would be where I am today or have the aspirations and dreams that I have today if it wasn't for you, Mom. So all the boys love you. All 5 of us love you. Starting 5 loves you, and we'll be all together soon, Mom. Love you.
What's up, Mom? It's your middle child, your favorite child. I'm just kidding. Just want to say thank you, love you for your motherhood. Not because that everything in the world you gave us, but you gave us everything that you had, everything that you could give us. And oftentimes, adults and those that came before us, may get a bad rap because of where they might have struggled or dropped the ball. But the reality of it is, you always told me, like, you know, oh, you're going to learn once you become a parent, or you're going to see when you become a parent. And I am seeing now, because in a lot of ways, we're all just still wrestling and dealing with a lot of the childhood trauma that we never quite got figured out. Whether you're 20 years old, whether you're 5 years old, whether you're 38, 60, we're all dealing with that. And so the girls love you. I love you. Carrie loves you. All your children love you. And the girls can't wait to see Gigi again in the Southeast. But just really appreciate what all you sacrificed and gave, even if it wasn't, you know, necessarily always cream of the crop. You gave us exactly what you could, and exactly what you were able to. And that to us now is the standard. Just giving my children, my family now, not everything in the world, because I don't have that, but giving them what I have. So thank you for that.
Yo, man. So Tim had to duck off real quick. Had something prior. I will say this, man. This has been legitimately my favorite podcast that I've done so far. I appreciate you guys for taking the time to join, for being vulnerable, for even wanting to do this. Before we close, is there anything else that you guys would like to say before we close it out?
No, man. I just appreciate you bringing or having this topic, man. Just bringing this in here. I definitely want to stay connected with them and with Ashford.
Yeah, no doubt.
With you guys, man. Yeah, for sure. It's good. We should keep something like this going. I think this is what the community needs.
Most definitely. Sure. Most definitely.
Yeah, man. It was hot, Julian. Think you probably did more damage here than you probably realized, but damage in a good way. That you probably realize, and we'll talk more about it later, man. But you did some good stuff, bro. Keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it, man. So for everybody listening, I'll go ahead and put IGs and stuff in the description so you guys can follow. Like Matt said, I do not think this is the last time we do this. I think there's definitely more topics, especially for Black men, that we can address. I'm already thinking of, just from the conversations we had, other situations that we can discuss and talk about, just give perspective. So be on the lookout for that. For all those listening, again, thank you for listening. For all those watching, you got to see 4 beautiful melanin-filled Black faces today. You should feel blessed. And that'll be it. Y'all have a great day. Thanks.
Appreciate you, bro.